Welcome back to the Aviation RC Noob Podcast. You found us. My name is Joe.
And I'm Matt.
We're here to be with you along your journey and to share our experiences in RC aviation. If you have any questions, thoughts, or want to share a flight story, hit us up at aviationrcnoob@gmail.com. Now, buckle in. Let's take off.
All right, it's episode 50. It's too windy, so let's build. Okay, this week, it's just going to be me. I'm going to catch up with everybody here on what I've been up to in the hobby, and I can tell you a little bit about what Joe's been up to. But Joe has had, I don't know, he's had to take a minute to address some things that, I don't know, like life throws at all of us. He just had his turn, so he's dealing with that. But as I understand it, he'll be back next time. So some of the things we were planning to do this week, I've kind of put off till next time we meet, as it were. Kind of changed some gears so that it's better, maybe better suited for a single conversation. It's me just talking into a mic, and it's a little bit different than our conversations that we do get to have. But I did want to kind of go through some basics, the things we usually talk about. Then talk about, what I've been up to and what I know Joe's been up to in the hobby really quick. Talk about some things that have been going on, some feedback about some of our episodes and conversations that I thought are worth mentioning. And they've been really interesting on the Discord server. I'm not going to cover it all, but there's some things specifically pertaining to our show topics that you may have already listened to. And if you aren't on our Discord server, it's a great place to be able to have conversations about the hobby, about the episodes that we record. It's a great community. Honestly, Joe and I modeled it a lot off of what I saw when I started from Flight Test Forums. It's, be polite, be considerate. We're here to talk about hobby stuff. It's time to nerd out. Let's do it. So that's what that's about. I'd love to have you guys join us. We'll have a link in the show notes, and it's basically get on Discord and look up Aviation RC Noob Podcast, and it'll be there. We also, I believe, have a link on our website. That's www.aviationrcnoob.com. That's also a place where we have a place you can submit comments, and that'll basically send us an email letting us know comments you had maybe about the show, about the website. Tell us, where's all the stuff you promised? I don't know. We're still working on most of those things. We've got a lot of exciting things kind of moving around as Joe and I talk about different items regarding this podcast and life itself and all that fun thing. So go there. You can also reach us out on the Facebook. Make a comment there. I don't always see them because Facebook likes to hide it. It's not always on the tab I tend to start with. But we'll also make announcements on when we're doing build events and or sim events that we set up through Discord. If you're on our Discord server, we also put out invites. They just started a new thing where we could basically put something on a calendar and basically announce it to anybody in that server so that they know kind of what we're going to be up to, and it sets out on a calendar and it puts reminders out and stuff like that. So it's a great way to kind of, and it'll link you directly to where we're going to be doing those things. So I can't urge you enough to do that. And then the other thing is usually we put this at the end, and I will, but most importantly, I want to do it before we get too far into the show. If you like what you've been hearing and you'd like to hear us talk about more things, different things, interesting things, or things that you think would be interesting for us to talk about, or you want to hear more about, maybe a topic we've covered and we want to hear, more details, that kind of thing. Those are awesome. Joe and I want to hear about it. So if you can, if you want to help, tell us about your ideas, okay? The things you'd love to hear, things you'd love to see. And we have a comment that's a good example of it that I'll share in a minute. Also, probably one of the biggest things that can help is share with about 3 people you know in the hobby or people who are interested in the hobby, get them to know about this podcast. Probably they don't know. They may not listen to podcasts. Maybe, say, hey, listen to a couple episodes. I think you'd like this topic. Go listen to it. I think you might like it. These guys are great. I listen to them every week. Just, or maybe you don't like us, but you want to punish somebody. Say, go listen to these people. They're awful. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But basically, share this with 3 of your RC friends. People who are RC airplane enthusiasts and you think that might enjoy the show. Pass the word out. That's one of the best ways you can help us grow. And then, of course, if you want to help us a little bit every week monetarily, every month, you can join our Patreon. And Joe and I always, our hearts go out to everybody who supported us so far and anybody who will support us in the future. It really helps us kind of keep motivated, for sure. And you could do that at www.patreon.com/aviationrcnoob. And I think with that, those are the 3 basic ways. Share us. You could give us a little bit of monetary support, and tell us what you want to hear more of. Help us find topics that are going to be interesting to you guys. We have things that we're interested in, which we will continue to talk about, but we would love to hear what you're interested in. Also, if there are people, one of the topics I'm interested in, if you know somebody who is running a museum, an air museum, or a model aviation museum, maybe, a person we can contact, I would love to have you reach out and let us kind of help us get in touch. Because I wanted to kind of start talking about reaching out to some of those people. I would love to know what it takes to kind of curate a collection, per se, which may be a topic in the future if we can kind of pull some of that together. But so I reach out to you, our listeners, to see if you might be able to help us out. And if you can't, that's okay. Just keep listening, and hopefully you're enjoying it as much as we enjoy making it. All right, so I'm going to then move on to what I've been doing in the hobby. I'm going to tell you what Joe's been doing. As far as I can tell, we've been talking probably last week almost every night just because we happen to be on and building. We've been building like crazy because it's been windy here in Carolinas, to the point where I think there was a tornado that touched down nearby. I know I was sitting on the porch, and all of a sudden the wind went left and right, and trees were whipping around. And it wasn't the first time, so it's just that kind of year, or time of year. So with those kind of wind conditions, it makes it really difficult to maiden a plane, which I've got about, I guess we'll talk about that, but I've got a couple of planes that are ready to get in the air, but it's not the best conditions. Not one, at least I have time to be able to get out. But Joe has been working on his skinned Spitfire. So he took the skins that I printed last time, that I think we talked about, and we're going to talk a little bit more about those later. But basically, he's put it on a Spitfire, and he's been starting to build. And if you're in our Discord, you can go to the FT Spitfire Squadron text channel in our Discord. And Joe's got a number of pictures of what his is turning out to be. If you want, I guess you're going to be listening to this just after. Hopefully, you join me this Friday. What is that going to be? Oh my gosh, that would be recording it pretty late, so it's almost tomorrow practically. Joining me on the 13th, tomorrow night, between 8 and 11, I'm going to be putting together my skinned Spitfire, which should be pretty exciting. I won't be able to stay a whole lot past 11, unfortunately. This is Eastern Daylight Time. I have a thing I have to do with my son at dark 30, actually a little bit before dark 30. So I will have to go so I can get some sleep and get him to where he needs to be. But I'm excited to get that done because I'm watching Joe's come together, and I'm excited by what I see. And I think if you're interested in joining us or just putting together a Spitfire that looks pretty snazzy, you can look in our file share section, and I think Joe has posted the skins there. and you could take them and print them off, or a large scale plotter. And we'll talk more about that stuff if you can at a later episode. But go ahead and do that, and it'll be good. If you're hearing my cat, he's in the background and oftentimes pretty loud. So I hope you enjoy the kitty cat noise just like he enjoys making it. Okay. All right. So what have I been building? So this past week, I mentioned, and I think our last episode, our history segment was on the Drachenflieger, which is potentially a model that predates the Wright brothers that was very close to gaining true controlled flight. So I was intrigued, and I apparently mentally couldn't put it down. And I ended up putting together some plans and took those plans, cut them out, built the plane, and by the end of that week, I was doing my glide tests. So I balanced it, did some calculations, confirmed the calculations, and I also have been pulling out some of the older stuff. The projects that I put, man, I've been working on those. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. It must be 2-3. Feels like it's only a year ago, but it's probably been like 2-3 years ago. 2019, 2018 for some of these things, and they kind of got put on the back burner for usually because I was busy onto the next project. Either there was a failure of some sort, or there was maybe I needed to go back and kind of rearrange something or rebuild a piece on a landing or on a takeoff that was close. And I just didn't have time. Something happened. I put it on the back burner, and then new shiny project came along, and I put it aside, and that's where it kind of stayed for the last 2-3 years. And I'm sure that you guys can relate. I don't imagine I'm the only person to be able to do that. And I'm not the first. I'm sure I won't be the last. So what I did is started looking at some of these things, and I realized, maybe I should take a look at some of these things and see what I could patch up, as most of them are really about a half hour to maybe an hour to getting it set up for another maiden or another flight. They're really not far at all. So let's see. So I've been working on those in the last week. I think that's the basics of it. So without further ado, I'm going to talk more in detail about specifically the kinds of little patches and little fixes that I've been doing to these planes in about a couple more minutes after I talk about the community stuff in our history segment. So let's go talk about some of the stuff our community has been up to. As a reminder, the 13th, if you were there, thank you for joining me as I build my Spitfire and join hopefully you building yours. And we kind of build together and talk shop. Joe will be doing that on the 20th between 8 and 11 Eastern Daylight Time. So again, I hope you had fun with me, and Joe will be doing it the following week, so you can help finish that. And honestly, if you're on a Discord server, if you're interested in building, you just say, "Hey, I'm about to sit down and build. Who's interested in kind of sitting down and talking shop?" You'd be surprised. Sometimes there's 3-4 people who are on there, and it's like, "Yeah, I'll see you in a second. Let me get my stuff." So don't hesitate to reach out there and just see if anybody's online and want to join you. I'll tell you what, building with a friend, nearby is a lot more fun than building by yourself sometimes. So, all right. A late minute community item just came in from the Hangar RC, our good old friend Sam Platt. He gave us news on the Build-Off Challenge, the Hangar RC 2022 first inaugural Build-Off Challenge, sponsored by us, Aviation RC Noob, and RC After Hours. all the submissions have been in, and they've started to judge. And what they've done is they're putting the judge out for a vote. I think the people who started are kind of looking at it, but they want the community to vote on it. So if you want to vote, and I urge you to do so, there's a number of submissions. You can go to the hangarrc.com/buildoff and go to there. I know Sam will be putting on a link. We're going to put, let's see, he gave one of those QR codes. I think I'm going to be sharing that when I find it. I'll put it on our Facebook page. It's already on the Build Off channel in our Discord. If you look near the bottom, as of the 13th, I believe, was the date it got posted. There'll be the QR code as well as a link to the form. And basically, you go to this Google form and you get one vote per unique account. I believe it's a Google account. And then you basically vote for which there's one of the basic category and one of the advanced category. There are 3 entries each, I believe, is what I saw when I voted. So go pick your favorite one, and may the best design win. And honestly, I think they all are winners because they all look really good. So Sam, thanks for putting this together with some of your other forum friends. I know Tristan and Tad leads. Sam, of course, got the kind of organized the whole thing, or at least got a lot of it corralled and a web page to host it, among putting up services to put it into kits potentially later and whatnot. He also indicated that there is a prize that basically if you want the contest winner, so basically one of the entries, one of the people who votes, one of the accounts that votes will be selected for a prize. Not only will the person who wins the vote get a kit of their design, it will also potentially be offered as an available piece for other people to go and build through the Hangar RC. But he also offers one of the voters will get a kit from the Hangar RC. You'll be able to choose on one of the basic kits. And really the only thing that's limited is basically one vote per account. That's kind of how Google lays it out. And so if you've got multiple accounts like myself, you can vote lots of times. So get your friends out, have them look at the planes and have them vote for yours and the other one that they think is the best. And, get out there and vote. Okay. I'm going to put a link to the form. It is forums.gle// U, capital Y, 5, lowercase p, capital E, capital G, lowercase I, Z, capital N, capital D, capital Y, capital J, capital H, 8, capital P, capital C, 9. I'm not going to repeat it. Just go back or look in the show notes for the links, or go to the hangarrc.com for the build-off page /build-off. And there should be a link there. I don't think there is today because it's fresh and hot off the press. But I know Sam is working hard at getting those things out there. So support everybody who took the time to put in a submission. It's a lot of hard work for those who put it in, I know. As well as, to anybody who looked at it and tried to get in on this challenge. It wasn't easy. There was a pretty tight deadline. So get out there and vote and, look forward to it next year. So think about Christmas time next year. There's going to be another contest. So maybe kind of get an idea for what you might want to submit for then. Without further ado, let's go over some of the comments. We got a comment from Flight Team Aviation.
All right, that's
Jeff.
It for this
He's
part.
one of our early listeners. He's been kind of busy, I think, and kind of got back into listening to the episodes. And he said, listening to episode 48, and I wanted to point out that the very controversial subject of the first flight, while there is no photographic proof that there was eyewitness accounts that the German immigrant named Gustav Whitehead made 2 powered flights in the 2 years before the Wright brothers. He's just saying. And I said, yeah, I heard that was pretty hotly contested. And we had another listener, Mad Pilot Matthew, say, yeah, I've heard the same about the German immigrant and multiple others, guys who lived in small towns that you've never even heard of. I think the Wright brothers can rightfully, and he very punnily spelled it out, can be the first documented powered flight. And Spitfire 76 joined in, and he said, Richard, he said, also what's interesting is that their first patent was not on the flying machine itself, but on the way to control the flying machine. And of course, just because the flying machine can fly, it's not much use if it can't be controlled, as we all know with our RC experience. And it's interesting, if I didn't mention it, the big thing that the guy was interested in patenting for the Drachenflieger was the control stick. So he's absolutely right. And I think for some reason he didn't patent it, but that was pretty much the thing that he felt was his big innovation. And he says also what's interesting is that the first patent was not the flying machine. Oh, but the RC models. I'm sorry, there's a duplicate there. We kind of agreed. And Richard followed up saying, yeah, I love seeing that. This movie, I guess all that talk reminded me of this movie called Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. There's a trailer on YouTube. There's one kind of image that looks a little, I'll call it racy, but it's not. You might get a little bit of bare shoulder there. So go check that out. We're going to put a link down there for you to check out if you're interested. He says there is a way to watch it. I think Vudu or Google Play or something like that. So that was an interesting conversation that was spawned by one of our episodes. And the conversation of first flight, really, I think we might go into more detail if we can kind of piece together some more, I guess, some better evidence than what I know, which isn't much. And I think, honestly, Joe might even have a better handle on it. All right. So Bo1234 told us that he's only listened to half of our latest episode before the headphones died. He goes, but I love it so far. That's the first one he's listened to. So he just thought that was, I guess, funny that he just started listening. So Bo, we're glad you're on board, and I'm glad you're liking it. Thank you. Then we get into a conversation, another listener, Zediak, Jesse, who we've talked about before, but it's funny because he's a friend that we've known from before, and he joined our server, but to kind of help us with this or that, but he never. It took him a while to get listening to the episodes, but he knew what we were doing, and he certainly joined in. He said, you wouldn't believe this, but I just listened to 2 episodes in as many days. It turns out they're the perfect length for his drive to see his folks. And he said there was an observation in episode 48. He goes, it was a lot easier to listen to than episode 49, volume-wise. He goes, he didn't have it on Bluetooth or headphones or anything like that. And so there was no way to kind of put it through the car stereos. So he basically just had his phone speaker on, and he had to use it at max volume. With episode 49, he had to even put it all the way up to his shoulder to be able to hear it well. But on the way home and in the rain, he could hear episode 48 with the phone just sitting on the console. He said that the outro was even louder. He goes, it's probably a small thing, but don't worry about it. I'm sure it'll get better. But he goes, I like the levels of 48 versus 49 for whatever it's worth. And honestly, I'm going to kind of interject. He continues on. I'll get to that in a second here. That we really do appreciate the audio, the feedback on anything having to do with the show. We want to make it as easy to listen to as far as audio quality as we can, within our means. And I think Joe works really hard at making sure that those things are taken care of. And honestly, I can't say when listening back that I really have too big of an issue, but I understand it. I know some of the other podcasts I listen to, I'm doing the same kind of thing where I'm like, man, I'm at max volume and I can barely hear this. This is awful. And then there's other ones where it's blasting out my eardrums. So I appreciate you helping us try to fine tune that and get it right. So thank you very much, Jesse. And he says, "Oh, an idea for content. I've seen people launch gliders with model rockets, and he's a rocket enthusiast, by the way. If you didn't know, if you ever get him online talking to him, ask him about his rockets, and you'll have a conversation for a little bit. He says he gets some good fast altitude, detach, and then they glide down. Not sure how much content there really is, but he found it interesting. And he goes, maybe an episode on all the various RC styles and disciplines. And he goes, of course, maybe you already did that and I missed it. And I said, well, thanks for the audio feedback, as how I replied to him. And I said we did do an overview episode somewhere as we pulled out of year one content. So that'd be episode 20-ish, I think. And he goes, but I know for sure we didn't ever cover rocket gliders. So, and that it is a thing. There's a couple people I already have seen in the community getting excited for it. I've also found a couple outer zone models that look pretty neat that I was thinking about building. I was like, oh, they need rockets. I'm like, maybe I should build a rocket. Anyway, muse for a different day. But I said, very cool, and thanks a lot. So that's definitely I'm marking that on my list of topics we might want to explore. So those are a couple comments that kind of came in over the last couple episodes, and we appreciate those. And don't hesitate, if it's an older episode, you have a comment, go ahead and write it in. We'd love to hear what you're thinking and what you're feeling about the episodes. We hope that the things, especially with our history segments, I know that they are not the end all be all, but they are kind of a thing to wet your whistle. If it's something you think is interesting, you want to hear more, hopefully it'll kind of inspire you to go and, dive a little deeper. So, well, there we go. There's a little bit of news. Something I had heard from another podcast I was listening to, and I kind of had to look it up a little bit and verify that it's even a thing. And it's not necessarily good news, but it's news that if you know about now, I don't know that you'll be able to head it off at the pass, but it's something that we can be informed about and approach it, I guess, in an intelligent way. So one of the things I heard was that President Biden in America, that he wants to crack down on drones. And he says, and we were kind of looking at, like, what does that mean? I guess the overview of the fact sheet basically says that the Domestic Counter Unmanned Aircraft Systems National, what is that called? National Action Plan. Because over the last decades, unmanned aerial systems, or UASs, have become a regular feature in American life. We use them for recreation, a bunch of other things, but they're definitely something the government is very concerned with as far as its potential to do harm, and become a national safety hazard, really. So there's we'll put a link to the fact sheet. I don't know how much it'll do, and based on the brief, it's a real brief minute that I've looked at it. It's basically the name of Domestic Counter Unmanned Aircraft Systems National Action Plan. Like, oh my God, what a phrase. But basically, it sounds like they're making a plan to make a plan. And I'm sure that will come down in a not so kind way to us RC enthusiasts. So I think it's time that we basically reach out to the powers that hold our interests dear and can help our nation see the importance that it has for both us and other affected industries. Now's the time to start it, not after it's already taken place. Now, granted, a decree coming down from the president does kind of take a lot of voices to kind of have somebody kind of pull back and say, whoa, that's not really something people want. Anyway, I'm not going to go deeper into that, but I urge you to look into it more and pay attention to put it on that the watch sheet of yours that you have when you're like, ooh, what's going on over there? Keep an eye. Again, it is called the Domestic Counter Unmanned Aircraft Systems National Action Plan. Okay, we'll have a link in the description. And then I guess we'll get on to our main topic, or we'll get on to our history segment. This will be relatively short. It was kind of inspired by the World War I Dawn Patrol for Flight Fest, because as Joe and I and some friends are all planning to go to Flight Fest, one of the events is that basically kind of a forum challenge or a forum inspired event where all the enthusiasts there say, hey, let's build a like a large scale, like it's a 1/6 scale World War I aircraft, and then basically everybody brings what they designed or what they built, and we all kind of fly it together. So it's roughly the same scale. They're not tiny. They're going to be big, and depending on what kind of plane you're looking to do, kind of like the Gotha Gaggle, like the Gotha bomber it's a big one. So I ended up thinking about realizing that I may not have as much room as I think to be able to build the plane I was thinking about. We'll talk about that in the next history segment. But so I decided to go, what other World War I planes are out there? And of course, most of them have already been, I'll call it, tackled. The Fokker D8 or whatever it is, the Eindecker. Now I don't have the list in front of me, so I don't have the whole, but you know what I'm talking about, the Sopwith Camel, the Bristol, was it M1? I think Richard put a plan set together for that with the Hangar RC build-off challenge. He did a great job with that. It flies really good. He finished that up. So I urge you, if you are on the forums, go look for that, because it looks like a plane worth building. And there's a couple, I don't know, there's a bunch of them, all the planes that you could think of that are World War I. And I'm like, oh, well, look at that. And then, I was talking to a couple people, Jesse being one of them, because he likes to poke my bear, of like, ooh, look at this weird plane. I'm sure you won't build it, which is, of course, code for saying you should build this. And he gave me a couple pictures, and I started looking around, and I saw it again. I'm like, this actually would be a great size for the 1/6 scale World War I aircraft Dawn Patrol. It is the DFW T-28 Flow, which is German for the word flee. It's a small German biplane fighter prototype designed by Hermann Dornier, not Dornier, Hermann Dornier. He's the designer of the successful Hanover CL2, a two-seat fighter from 1917, and it was built by the Deutsche Flugzeugwerk, which is the DFW. It's designed in 1915 as a high-speed fighter. The Flow, or the Flea, has a small 6.2 meter or 20-foot wingspan and a rather ungainly tall and thin fuselage with a fixed conventional landing gear. The Flea was powered by a 100 horsepower or 75 kilowatt Mercedes D1 inline piston engine, which is carefully hidden in the fuselage, and all that you see on the plane are exhaust ports. On its first flight in December 1915, it reached 180 kilometers per hour, which is very close to 95 knots, I believe, or a little over 100 miles an hour. Which is quite fast for its time. If you look at all the other planes at that era, we're looking at like 60 to 70 knots for a really fast one. I think maybe up to 80. The aircraft suffered, however, from a very poor forward visibility. And it was, of course, difficult to land due to its narrow landing gear. The prototype crashed, unfortunately, during the flight testing program. The plane had its terrible visibility ahead and below, which there's a couple pictures on some of the links that we'll have down below in the show notes. And it made taxiing a challenge. It even required like the pilot to stand up to be able to even see where the heck they were going. Of course, landing visibility like that made landing next to almost impossible, difficult at best, and it led to the flight's crash on the landing. It was eventually repaired. It was actually repaired shortly after that, but by the time that was repaired, there were other advancements that the German Air Force decided it was going to go a different direction. So they kind of put the project to bed. So there was it was a crew of one. It was little over 15 feet long. The wingspan was 21 feet. It had a wing area of 160 square feet. Its empty weight was 926 pounds. The gross weight was 1,430 pounds. Sorry, did I say empty? Yeah, which means it leaves about 500 pounds for cargo and ammunition and fuel and basically for a pilot. So the power plant was one Mercedes D1, like we talked about, water-cooled inline pistons, 75 kilowatt or 100 horsepower engine. The propellers, it was a two-bladed propeller. It had a maximum speed of basically 110 miles an hour or 97 knots. And it was only armed with one 7.92 millimeter or 0.312 inch LMG 08/15 Spandu machine gun, which was that had the interrupter so they could fire through the spaces between the propellers. The model that I ended up, so after seeing this, I ended up basically trying to figure out how 1/6 scale is. And I realized that it's basically about 52 inches or like a little over 1 meter? Is that about right? The wingspan was 6.5 meters, so 1/6 scale is like 1.2 meters. This model ended up being about 50 inches wingspan, 25 inches long, 20 inches high. I'm estimating it will come in between 500 and 600 grams. And I'll be putting stuff on the flight test forums and probably in our file sharing section of our Discord if you're interested in building one. If you're going to Flight Fest, it's 4 sheets, so it should be relatively quick. It should be relatively easy to build. It's swappable, so you can take your existing C power pack and put on a 10-inch or 11-inch prop with a 2-cell or an 11-inch with 3. But if you want to do it truly to scale, you're going to have to put a different motor system in it because it swings a 15-inch prop to be scale. So it's a crazy looking bird. Take a look at it. It almost looks like somebody took a goldfish and put some biplane wings on it. Really short 1-bay biplane wings. So anyway, all right. So without further ado, let's move on to the main topic, as it were, which is build. What have I been doing in the last couple of weeks? And it's been building like crazy. And so let's talk about that now. All right. So the big topic is following my own advice, which I rarely do, in that it was really windy the last couple of weeks. It's been crazy windy. So, to the point where there was, I think, in 2 different spots in the last couple of weeks, there's been tornadoes. But not anything crazy, but there's like the very beginnings of one, right? Where the wind is going every which direction and fast. So, all right. But basically what I did, I said, well, I can't maiden anything, which is pretty much what I have to fly. So I decided I was going to dredge up some old projects and get them working. I was also working on the Drachenflieger. The Drachenflieger, I put together some plans really quick. I cut out all the pieces. I built it and had a working prototype within, about a week. And so I used eCalc, I think, as a CG calculator to figure out where my CG was for the plane. Now, the interesting thing about that plane is, it looks like the CG should be kind of right in the middle of the pontoons. I mean, that's where I would put the pontoons for the boat. part of the plane. That way it would travel across the water without any issue. But apparently that's not quite how that works. That's not how they set it up. The CG actually sits just in front of the spar of the second wing, and that puts it right at the very front of the pontoon. Which I thought was kind of odd. So when I went out there the first time, I gave the plane a toss, and it went, but it nosed up and stalled and kind of came back down pretty gently. And then so I said, well, that's not where the CG shows it to be. So let me move. I put in a bunch of weight way in the front, about as much as the weight of a 2200 milliamp battery. I think somewhere around 200 grams, 175 grams, somewhere in there. And so then I put it to balance where the calculator shows, and I let it go and gave it a good toss. And it turns out it was pretty darn close. So with a little tweaking, I got it set up, and it flew across the yard. I'd have to say, it's not a spectacular glider or anything like that. I would have to say it's maybe a 5-to-1 glide slope, but it did go pretty well. I've got some videos. I'll share the link in the description down below in the show notes if you want to take a look. So I'll show you the successful one. But there's a second one out there that kind of shows kind of how I got to that point where I was, having some success with it. And now next step is to basically mount some motors. I've got some APAC motors, so 1806, 2300 kV motors. I'm going to set it up on a 2200 milliamp battery out in the front. I may end up getting 2 separate ones and kind of bring it a little bit closer so it's not sticking way out in the front of the plane. Yeah, and then I think I'm going to have to put in a pretty heavy servo to get the tail to actuate for the elevator. The rudder shouldn't be as big a deal, but the elevator might. I'm debating back and forth about how I should mount the tail. Should I permanently glue it in and set up with a couple control surfaces like we typically have in the RC, or do it kind of how they have it set up in the original plane and hope it works? It looks like it will. Anyway, I'll figure that out in the next week and see what I can come up with. In the meantime, I realized that my build table was actually pretty clean. First time in a long while. So I decided, I was going to pull out the old Synergy box tail. It's a plane that has captivated me since I saw it, 5 years ago. I think a number of people have attempted it. There's 1 or 2 people who have been successful at kind of recreating it. I built a really simple version, and it flies great. I have a lot of fun with it. I love seeing it in the air. It's really, really striking. Honestly, the gentleman who designed the plane, the little custom kind of cottage industry of his, kind of very much like a kit builder. He's somebody I'd like to get on the show and kind of ask him what he thinks. But I want to get this working model first, and then kind of maybe call him up and pick his brain. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Let me know if you feel the same way. I also pulled out my old OS2U Kingfisher. It is the plane that is on the back of a lot of United States battleships. It's on the USS North Carolina, which I was shocked at when I found out about that feels like forever and a day ago. Probably about 6 years ago, maybe. So it was my first Master Series design. I kind of did the borrow, cheat, and steal from a neighbor. I looked at the fiddler's green thing, and I decided to kind of take that and size it up and see what I could do with it. It turns out it makes a pretty darn good model. I did a maiden that didn't go so well, and I think I was basically trying to fly a pontoon off of grass, and there just isn't enough control surface for that. And there wasn't enough power in the motor system to really kind of have it just scoot straight off the grass. So I think now that I've got this set, I need to rebuild the power pod, put a new motor on it, and make a wheel. The original kind of had a wheel for landings and takeoffs on land. So I think if I put those, it'll roll across the grass to be able to get enough speed and be able to get lift. So I think I'm going to do that. My son was talking to me. I was asking him, I'm like, well, I love the planes. And I said, you didn't seem to be like opposed to flying them. Like, why haven't we gotten you a plane ready for this? And he's like, well, I said, when you were building that FT Vector, what happened to it? He goes, no, I just don't like building. He goes, but if it was built, I'd fly it. I said, well, yeah, I want to get you a plane that's yours. And then, if you crash it, you crash it, and we'll build another one, and, that kind of thing. But he said, okay. Yeah, if it was built, I'd fly it. So I said, okay. So I pulled it out the other day and started looking at what I need to do to get it finished. I have a feeling I'll have it together within about a night. It's a simple build. It looks effective. And I have a couple servos here, and I've got a motor system that I think I should be able to mount to a firewall pretty quick and get it in there. That shouldn't be a big deal. So I'm looking forward to getting that together for him and for me so that we could kind of fly as a family. Joe was talking last time that we talked. He was talking about all the different projects. He's like, oh, yeah, I got to get the sea duct fixed. He has the nose he had damaged. And he was talking about how he wanted to repair that. And I said, oh, that's right. That reminds me. I've got the Don Carnage plane pretty much built. Now, I never got it off the ground. I got really close. I guess it got off the ground. It didn't fly well. And I was told that maybe it's the motor size and the prop size. So I've got a bigger motor and a prop, the one that I used for the Magician. And there was a little bit of damage that I went and repaired, and I kind of tightened a couple of things up. And now it's ready to go. I really need to put some paint on it so that way when Joe gets his ready, we can have a battle and it'll look really cool. So in the meantime, right now it's white, but it's ready to go. It's foam board white. I've got a Simple Sore here. The Simple Sore Fuse, which has been, honestly, it looks like it's been through the war. I think I need to kind of confirm some glue strips and add a little bit of stiffeners maybe to the horizontal vertical surfaces, or at least braces. And I think that'll get it about ready to go again. Because all the other stuff is in there and ready. And just I need to find where I put the wing, but I know it's here somewhere. Once I do, I can just put it up top and be done and glide around. I miss gliding, honestly. I've got, that's another one. I need to pull down my glider and just kind of put a motor system in it, not a motor, put a battery and a receiver in it and just kind of see where it is. I think it's ready to go. I just haven't done that. Put the battery in and just make sure everything works right. So I'm looking forward to doing that and getting those planes ready. So, that's one of those things you probably have, I guess. And so we come around to the point of all this, right? The point of this part of the episode, the point of the episode is if you have downtime, you probably, like me, have about 15, 20 different planes. So the point of talking about all these different planes and the little bit that each one of these needs to get going, with the exception of the Synergy Boxtail. That's kind of like a project that got about, the wings were like just started, and there's a lot of complexity to them. But all the other ones, you've probably got this too. We've got about 10 planes are just sitting around, or half your planes are sitting with a little bit of damage, or it needs a small fix here, or maybe I need to replace a servo there. I need to check on this over here. Maybe I wanted to repair some paint damage before I put it back up in the air. I don't know. But you probably have a number of planes that with very little work can go from, we'll call it Shelf Queen, to in the air, honestly, ready to fly. And you'd be surprised at how little that takes. I know, I think a Dollar Tree foam board was a Reptile Dragon as the name of the original plane. But Chris designed the foam board version of it. Just said, this can't be that hard. It's a really simple plane. And he designed a killer design. I helped him put it on some paper for him, but it's a really great plane. And I'm looking forward to, I think I was having an issue with the motor was stuttering. So I had to go through and do some resoldering and see where the damage was. I haven't gone through and tested to put a battery in. That's another simple thing. Really easy to do. I don't know. My point is just go back through your collection. You'd be surprised at how many planes are probably right there. They don't need but a little bit of time, and you'll probably have it back in the air. So go take a minute. Next time it's raining, next time it's too windy, go get that done, man. That way you can have it ready to fly next time. It's nice out. Next time you're ready to go and you're going, "Ooh, I can't wait to fly something." You can look around and go, "Oh, that's right. I've got all these to choose from." So do yourself a favor and do that. And then go, "Hey, thanks, Aviation RC Noob. You guys are great. Without you, I wouldn't have all these planes to choose from." Okay, maybe that's a little bit much. But either way, I hope this advice helps you out, and I hope it kind of gets you motivated to take out your collection and see what needs to be repaired and get them ready for the coming fly season if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. All right. Well, good. I guess that kind of brings me back around to the last little bits and pieces, which are the workbench. I kind of covered a lot of it, but I've got a Maiden, the Drachenflieger after I put the motors on. I've got a Maiden, the Drachenflieger. I've got a Maiden, my P61. Let's see. I've got an FT Vector that I got to build. I've got to paint up the Don Carnage plane. I have the DFW T28 Flea that I've got to build. I kind of got challenged on the forum that I couldn't do it in a week, and I know for a fact I can. So I think I'm gonna. I have my X-Jet Outlaw. It's ready to just put back in the air. I need to make it so that I can see it better, and I need to basically mount a motor to a firewall and put it in. But that's it. I've got my Foamy Bird of Time. Okay, Foamy DM's Bird of Time. It's up there. I've got to redo the structures on the outer knuckle of the plane. I'm planning on putting a couple reinforcements in there, gluing them in place, and then maybe putting the joint in the middle and just doing it that way. And I think that'll actually work out a lot better for me and for the plane structurally, as well as being able to carry it around. So once I do that, it's ready to go again. I mean, there was really nothing wrong with it other than that. I've got to build my Spitfire, the third one. I'll be doing that tomorrow. If you can, please join me. Oh, wait, if you did, thanks for coming. The car plane and the J1000. Those are like servos and a motor system setup. And then, as they're unique, I got to go through and do the maiden test and the glide test and all that stuff. But that's the fun part. So those are on my workbench. That seems like a lot in 2 weeks, and it may be too much. But I think a lot of those will get knocked out faster than I realized. As long as life doesn't take hold and kind of start taking me away from the hobby. So, all right. Without further ado, why don't we just kind of end this up? I'll do it like we always do. I'd like to, as always, we want to thank you for listening. I wanted to mention Joe is probably going to be working on his ARCN Spitfire. He'll probably be finishing that up. And I'm hoping he does a little bit of repair work on his glider. So that way we can talk about that next time. All right. Well, anyway, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. If you want to, we would love to hear back any feedback. If you have any, you can send it. You can go to aviationrcnoob.com, and in there's a leave a comment section. Go ahead and leave us a comment, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We'd love to hear feedback about how the show's doing and ideas you might have about where you want the show to go, what you'd like to see. If you want to reach out to me, you can read Matt. You can do that at Matthew@aviationrcnoob.com, or you can reach out to Joe at aviationrcnoob.com. If you want to support us through Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/aviationrcnoob and support us however you want to or however you can. We appreciate it a great deal. If you don't have any money you want to put in towards Patreon, that's fine. There's a great way you can help us out by spreading the word. See if you can get 3 of your friends to listen to our show. That'd make a big help. Or tell us what you're thinking, which I just covered how you could do that. I think that's about it. So, Joe, if you're ready to get out, oh wait, we'll talk to Joe next week and see if he's ready to get out of here. Honestly, I'm looking forward to the next time, the next show. Next show is going to be really exciting. I know it's the 50th. We're going to do something kind of exciting, but the world kind of went sideways on us for a minute, and that's okay. It's a busy time of year. We'll get back into it. Maybe we'll make our 52nd episode amazing. It'll be the Deck of Cards episode, maybe. I don't know. All right. Without further ado, I'll say goodnight and talk to you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye. What is it? Every animal and their brother need to be out right when I'm sitting down to record. Every single time. Dude, you okay? My dog is trying to drain a lake. He's so thirsty. I'm a little worried about it. Thank you. Please stop. I get it. You're thirsty. I get it. It's okay. It's just too much. Go lay down. Go lay down.